Although Mage is not currently meta for Master Mode right now, Mage is still the best class in regular dungeons because of its immense clearing capability, and is by far the best class for F7. So, in this video, I'm going to be going through the best gear, like weapons, armor and pets, and also how you should be doing each boss fight in every floor. So in my Berserker and Archer guides, some people said that my recommended catacombs level were too high, so in this video, I'm going to maybe bump them down by one. For entrance and floor 1, of course, it's just 0 as soon as you can get in. For floor 2, now I say 4, floor 3 is 8, floor 4 is 13, floor 5 is 18, floor 6 is 23, and floor 7, I think I'm going to keep it at 27. Starting off with floor 1 as a mage is actually not too difficult. For your weapon, I recommend the Dreadlord Sword. Although this requires Catacombs 5, it's still very cheap considering how relatively good it is, because it does the same damage as the Bonzo Staff, or nearly. However, the Bonzo Staff only requires Catacombs floor level 1 completion, which is actually a lot easier than the Catacombs 5, so it may also be an alternative using this, considering that later in dungeons you will also need this for F7. For the armor, I recommend a full set of Necrotic Wise Dragon armor. This provides a good amount of EHP, intelligence, and a set bonus reduces mana cost of abilities. For the pet, I recommend the Sheep Pet. The Sheep Pet provides intelligence and ability damage as base stats, and also increases your total mana and reduces the mana cost further, and this means that your mana cost of abilities is actually really low when you combine the sheep with the Wise Dragon armor. In the boss room, it's quite straightforward. With your Dreadlord Sword or your Bonzo Staff, you go around and you shoot Bonzo, and then when he respawns, you do the same thing. The only thing to watch out for is he has an ability where he walks into the center and then he starts shooting balloons out everywhere. This does actually have the capacity to kill you, so you do need to watch out for this. Moving on to floor 2, the floor 2 boss fight actually has some tricky features for Mage, because there's quite a lot of high burst damage. For your weapon, I recommend the Dreadlord Sword or the Bonzo Staff for the clear, and for mini bosses and the boss, I recommend the Frozen Scythe. However, the Frozen Scythe is quite expensive, with costing around 6.5 million coins compared to the Bonzo Staff around 2.5. So it is quite a big price jump, although it probably is worth it considering how useful it is for later floors as well. For your armor, the Wise Dragon armor you're using in floor 1 just isn't good enough anymore because it just doesn't provide enough EHP. For this, I recommend 3/4 Zombie Soldier armor because it can be dungeonized and is generally a pretty good set, and this all has to be reforged to Wise and Necrotic. And for the helmet, the Bonzo Mask is very good. This is because the Bonzo Mask gives good base stats, good intelligence, and also the ability is the best part. It gives you a second life in dungeons, so when you die, you instantly gain a second life. And because Mage is quite flimsy and doesn't have much EHP, this will save your life a lot. For the pet, I recommend the Sheep Pet, because it gives good ability damage and good intelligence, and in general it just helps with your mana conservation. In the boss room, floor 2 is quite tricky, so at the start you must kill the priest first because it revives the other undeads, then you can kill the others in generally whatever order you'd like. Then, when Scarf respawns them all, again you kill the priest first, this is the most important. Then the others are kind of interchangeable, you can kill them whenever you like, and then you have to focus on Scarf. Scarf has one very aggressive ability where he starts spewing out soul sand, and this is really deadly and will definitely burst you down very quickly. Floor 3 is another floor which probably favours in Berserker and Archer because the floor 3 boss fight is better for single hit damage, but Mage is better at doing AoE damage. Despite this, Mage is definitely viable in floor 3. The armour, pets and weapons all stay the same. However, I would recommend getting this Frozen Scythe because the clearing capability and for mini bosses it's quite good because it also slows them down, and in the boss it's also quite good to piercing because you can actually shoot 2 guardians at a time. For the armor, the 3/4 Zombie Soldier and the Bonzo Mask all just adds together to give intelligence and base EHP, although I would definitely recommend upgrading your armor to Necrotic. For the pet, the Sheep Pet as always is quite good because of the intelligence and ability damage and the mana cost reduction. However, if you are actually struggling with survivability, then the Blue Whale is the next best bet. It can probably be rare or something to just give you that little bit extra bulk. In the floor 3 boss fight, your job as a mage is just to kill one of the guardians. It shouldn't be too difficult, and all of your team will be doing it at the same time. So if you're not very good, then don't worry, your team will also struggle as well. Anyway, after this, then you will find the professor, and then you just have to kill the professor, and then the guardians will merge into one, and then all you have to do is just stand out of range, and then just shoot the professor. It's not really very complicated once you get used to it. And now we come to floor 4. Mage is by far the best class with floor 4 because of the great AoE damage and the immense damage that it deals to all the spirit mobs. For your weapon, you need to have the Spirit Scepter. The Spirit Scepter is great for floor 4 and general floors above it as well because it does great AoE damage, lots of damage, and also it gives a lot of base intelligence which helps with the ability damage as well. For the armor, I recommend the Free Force Zombie Soldier from before because it gives a good amount of EHP, and the intelligence when reforged necrotic isn't bad either. The Bonzer Mask is also very good because of the second life it gives. However, if you have a tank, then it can also be worth switching the Bonzer Mask for the Shadow Goggles. This doesn't give very much EHP, but that's fine if you have a tank, but the ability damage is what you bring it for, and the base intelligence. For your pet, I recommend the Sheep Pet, but also if you're struggling in the boss for EHP or even in the clear, then you can consider using a Blue Whale because it just gives that little bit extra bulk. In the floor 4 boss fight, it's not too tricky. Your job as a mage is just to kill all the spirit animals. Most likely your team will deal with the actual spirit bear, although your AoE damage will definitely deal damage to the spirit bear and help out as well. Probably your archer will end up shooting the spirit bow, although if they're monkeys, like usually people are, then you can just do it yourself. Floor 5, as long as you have a tank, is quite easy because as a mage your only job is just to look at the ground and just spam your Spirit Scepter. For your weapon, as usual, the Spirit Scepter is your go-to because of the high damage, the great AoE damage, and it's just fantastic for clearing, and it gives good ability damage because of the intelligence. The armor is where it changes a bit. For this, you should have 3/4 dungeonized necrotic wise. The dungeonized part is very important, and if you don't have Cata 18, then you should just stick to your zombie soldier armor. For the helmet, I recommend the Shadow Goggles, but if you're struggling for survivability, then the Bonzer Mask can also be used as a replacement. For the floor 5 boss fight, it's not really very hard as long as you have a tank. Your only concern is intelligence and damage. You just look at the ground, running around, and you just spam your Spirit Scepter close to the Livid. Soon enough, with all of your teammates helping, the Livid will just go down and you complete the floor. The floor 6 boss fight without a tank is absolutely terrible and you will 100% die because the Terracottas just deal so much damage. For the weapon, I recommend a Spirit Scepter for the reasons we said before because it gives a lot of intelligence, damage, and really good AoE, which is useful for clearing. For the armor, this is where it changes a bit. Although I still recommend keeping the Shadow Goggles for the ability damage and the Wise Dragon Chestplate for the good intel, the leggings and the boots are where you can change a bit. You can add some Necromancer Lord leggings and some boots because this will give you a lot of EHP, which will really help you in the clear. But Grunky, I don't have floor 6 completion, so I can't use the Necromancer Lord leggings. Well, don't fear my friend. On Saturdays, I stream F6 carries, so if you want to join, then subscribe to the channel and then you can join whenever you want. Back to the video. For the pet, I recommend the Sheep Pet in the clear, although you might be struggling with survivability, so as always the Blue Whale. These two pets are probably the main pets in your regular dungeons profile that you will be using. In the boss fight is quite tricky without a tank, and you will for sure die if you don't have one, so make sure when you're listening for Party Finder that you have a tank which knows what he's doing and is not like Cata 3 or something. Your tank will tell you where to go to and you just follow him, and then when the Terracotta spawn, you just fire your Spirit Scepter at the ground and all the Terracottas will take a lot of damage from your AoE. In the second phase, you just stick close to your tank and then just fire your Spirit Scepter at all the giants until they all die, and then when Satan spawns, then you just make him turn on his fly hacks along with your other archers, and then you just kill him. And now we get to floor 7. Floor 7 is what I'm sure most of you have been waiting for, because Mage, as we all know, is the best class for it. So for the weapons, this is where the debate gets a bit interesting. The Spirit Scepter just isn't good enough for floor 7. It doesn't do enough damage, and in general, it's just doesn't make the cut for it. The next weapons to consider are the Yeti Sword and the Midas Staff. Although there may be a case for the Yeti Sword, the Midas Staff does do a lot of damage, but it blocks arrows and for some reason it gets blocked by carpet? Yeah, so I think that's not really an option here. So that leaves the Yeti Sword. Although people will often say, the Yeti sword is the best sword in the game, is nearly as good as Hyperion. In reality, it's not. It just doesn't give the healing, it doesn't do enough damage, and aiming with it is just so hard, it's just so annoying. This is why, realistically, I think you should only be doing floor 7 with a Hyperion. So, assuming you don't have the 1.1 billion coins, like I don't either, then I think you should just switch to other classes for floor 7 at the moment. For the armor, you are probably going to be using Full Storm with Wither Goggles. This provides the most damage and is overall probably the best set for Mage. However, later game players will want to swap some of their Storm pieces for Maxa pieces, and this is because you need to get speed, and having speed is very useful in the clear, and Maxa still provides a decent amount of intelligence and things like that. For your pet, in the clear, you should probably be using the Blue Whale, because the floor 7 clear is actually quite difficult, and you may find yourself needing more bulk and more survivability. However, when it comes to the boss fight, you should use your Wither Skeleton. The perks are ideal for the floor 7 boss fight, because you deal more damage to the Wither mobs, and you take 30% damage less from them, and it's just a win-win. In the actual F7 boss fight, I say this every time, but it's quite complicated to put in one video along with everything else I've just mentioned. So I'm just going to say you need to communicate with your team as always, because it's very difficult. And you just need to tell people what terminals you're doing, what crystals you're going to get, and everything like that. And you just need to communicate with your team, whether that's in Party Finder with the monkeys, or in the palm with your friends. With the end of floor 7, that concludes my Mage guide. If you found this helpful or at all useful, then please consider subscribing, because I'm really close to 1,000 subscribers, and I would really appreciate it. Anyways, thank you for watching, and good luck with your dungeon careers.